The pounding on his door at midnight made Daniel's heart stop. When he opened it to find Elena, his boss of 3 years, standing there in the rain, her words hit harder than the storm behind her. "You're fired." But what happened next would change both their lives forever. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys that remind us how life's hardest moments can lead to unexpected blessings. Daniel Matthews stared at the ceiling of his modest 2-bedroom apartment, listening to the gentle snores coming from his 6-year-old daughter's room across the hall. Sleep had become a luxury he could rarely afford, not with the mounting bills, the upcoming school expenses, and the constant worry that he wasn't doing enough as both mother and father to little Lily. 3 years had passed since cancer took his wife Sarah, leaving him to navigate parenthood alone while trying to maintain his career as a senior graphic designer at Horizon Media. The company had been understanding at first, flexible hours, occasional work-from-home days, but lately, things had changed. Or more specifically, his boss had changed. Elena Winters had taken over the creative department 6 months ago, bringing with her a reputation for ruthless efficiency and impossibly high standards. The warm, family-friendly atmosphere that had once made Horizon feel like a second home had gradually cooled under her leadership. Late nights became expected rather than exceptional. Weekend work became the norm rather than the emergency measure. Daniel had tried to adapt. He'd hired babysitters when he could afford them, arranged playdates that bought him extra hours, and sacrificed his own sleep to meet deadlines after Lily went to bed. But it wasn't enough. The subtle signals from Elena had been mounting, the raised eyebrows when he left at 5:30 to pick up Lily from after-school care, the terse emails questioning his commitment, the assignments gradually shifting to other team members. Tonight had been the breaking point. The Westfield account presentation was scheduled for tomorrow morning, and Elena had called an emergency team meeting at 7 p.m. Daniel had already arranged for Mrs. Patel next door to watch Lily until 9, but when Elena announced they would be working through the night to perfect the pitch, he'd had to make a choice. "I'm sorry, but I need to get home to my daughter," he'd said quietly as the meeting wrapped up its 3rd hour. Elena's eyes had narrowed. "This presentation determines whether we keep our biggest client. Everyone needs to prioritize accordingly. My daughter is 6. She's my priority." The silence in the conference room had been deafening. His colleagues avoided eye contact as he gathered his things and left, feeling Elena's cold stare burning into his back. Now, as midnight approached, Daniel was still awake, working on his laptop at the kitchen table, trying to contribute remotely to the presentation he'd been forced to abandon. His eyes burned from exhaustion, but the fear of losing his job burned hotter. Without this position, without the health insurance it provided, without the stability it offered Lily, he couldn't bear to think about it. The sudden pounding on his door made him jump, spilling coffee across his keyboard. Who would be at his door at this hour? His first thought was of Mrs. Patel. Had something happened? Was she ill? He rushed to the door, heart hammering, and pulled it open to find Elena standing there. Her normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, her dark hair plastered to her face by the rain that had started falling an hour ago. Her expression was unreadable, but her presence on his doorstep at midnight couldn't possibly mean anything good. "Elena? What are you?" "You're fired," she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite her appearance. "Effective immediately." Daniel felt the floor tilt beneath him. "What? You can't." "I can and I have. Your position has been terminated." She thrust an envelope toward him. "Your severance details are in here. Clean out your desk tomorrow before noon." Daniel took the envelope automatically, his mind racing. How would he pay rent next month? What about Lily's medication? The school fees that were due next week? "Why?" he managed to ask, his voice barely audible over the rain. "My work has always been." "Your work isn't the issue," Elena cut in. "Your priorities are. Horizon needs employees who put the company first. You've made it abundantly clear that isn't you." Something snapped inside Daniel. The fear that had been choking him suddenly transformed into anger, not the hot, explosive kind, but a cold, clarifying fury. "You're right," he said quietly. "My daughter will always come first. Always. And if that makes me unsuitable for Horizon, then perhaps Horizon is unsuitable for any parent trying to raise a child with dignity and love." Elena's expression flickered, something unidentifiable passing across her features. For a moment, she seemed about to speak, but then a small voice came from behind Daniel. "Daddy? Who's at the door?" Daniel turned to see Lily standing in the hallway, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, her eyes heavy with interrupted sleep. "It's just someone from work, sweetheart," Daniel said, forcing a smile. "Go back to bed. I'll come tuck you in again in a minute." Lily didn't move. Instead, she padded forward in her unicorn pajamas, peering curiously at the rain-soaked woman in their doorway. "You're all wet," she observed with a child's direct honesty. "Do you want a towel? Daddy always says we should help people who are wet or cold or hungry." Elena stared at the little girl, seemingly at a loss for words. Daniel noticed for the first time how exhausted his boss looked, not just from tonight's work session, but a bone-deep weariness that seemed to have settled into her very posture. "That's very kind," Elena finally said, her professional tone faltering. "But I should go." "But it's raining really hard," Lily persisted. "And it's scary outside when it thunders. You can wait here until it stops. Right, Daddy?" Daniel found himself caught between his anger and the example he wanted to set for his daughter. "Lily's right. You shouldn't drive in this. At least wait until the storm passes." Elena hesitated, then gave a small nod, stepping inside. Daniel handed her a towel from the bathroom while Lily insisted on making her a cup of hot chocolate, because that's what Daddy makes me when I'm sad or cold. The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on Daniel, offering comfort to the woman who had just destroyed his livelihood. But as he watched Lily carefully carrying the mug of hot chocolate to Elena, who sat perched awkwardly on the edge of their worn couch, he felt a strange calm descend. Whatever happened next, he would figure it out. For Lily, he would always find a way. "Thank you," Elena said as she accepted the mug from Lily. Her voice sounded different, softer, less certain. "You're welcome," Lily replied cheerfully. "Are you Daddy's boss? He talks about you sometimes." Daniel winced. "Lily, Ms. Winters probably doesn't want to." "What does he say?" Elena asked, her eyes meeting Daniel's over Lily's head. Lily shrugged. "That you're very smart and good at your job. But that you don't smile much." She tilted her head. "Why don't you smile?" "Daddy says smiling makes your heart bigger." A strange sound escaped Elena, something between a laugh and a sob. She quickly covered it by taking a sip of hot chocolate. "Sometimes," she said after a moment, "grown-ups forget how to smile when they're busy with important things." "What's more important than smiling?" Lily asked with genuine confusion. The question hung in the air, simple yet profound in the way that only children's questions can be. Daniel saw something shift in Elena's expression, a crack in the polished professional veneer she always maintained. "I should check on that presentation," Daniel said, feeling the need to give Elena space from Lily's innocent interrogation. "Lily, time to go back to bed." "But I'm not tired anymore," Lily protested. "How about I read you one story?" Daniel compromised. "Then it's definitely bedtime." As he led Lily back to her room, he glanced over his shoulder to see Elena sitting motionless on the couch, staring into her mug as if it contained answers to questions she hadn't known to ask. When Daniel returned 10 minutes later, having successfully negotiated Lily back to sleep with 2 stories instead of 1, he found Elena standing by the small bookshelf in his living room, examining the framed photos there. "She looks like you," Elena said without turning around. She was looking at a picture of Lily at the beach last summer, her smile wide despite the missing front tooth. "She has her mother's spirit, though," Daniel replied, stopping a few feet away. Fearless. Curious about everything. Elena nodded, then turned to face him. Her professional mask had slipped back into place, but not completely. Something vulnerable lingered around her eyes. I should go. The rain has let up. Daniel nodded, suddenly remembering the envelope still clutched in his hand. His termination. His future, reduced to whatever severance package Horizon deemed appropriate for 3 years of dedicated service. Before you go, he said, surprising himself with how steady his voice remained, I'd like to know the real reason. Not the company line about priorities. The truth. Elena looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. The truth is complicated. I've got time, Daniel said with a bitter smile. Apparently I'm unemployed now. Elena flinched slightly at his words. She set down her mug and crossed her arms, not defensively, Daniel realized, but as if she were holding herself together. The board has been pushing for cuts in the creative department. They want to outsource more of our design work to freelancers, cheaper, no benefits to pay, no personal complications. She met his eyes directly. I was told to identify the most expendable team members. And I made the list because I have a child who occasionally needs me, Daniel concluded. No, Elena said sharply. You made the list because I thought you'd be fine. Your portfolio is exceptional. Your client feedback is consistently positive. I assumed you'd land on your feet faster than others who might be let go. Daniel stared at her, trying to process this unexpected explanation. You fired me, because you thought I could handle it better than my colleagues? Elena ran a hand through her damp hair, frustration evident in the gesture. It sounds terrible when you say it like that. How else should I say it? I don't know. For the first time, Elena's composed facade cracked completely. I'm trying to save as many jobs as I can while meeting the board's demands. I'm trying to keep the department functioning with fewer resources. I'm trying to, she broke off, shaking her head. It doesn't matter. The decision is made. Daniel studied her, seeing beyond his boss to the woman beneath, someone caught in her own impossible situation, making painful choices that affected real lives. What if there was another way, he found himself saying. Elena looked up, wariness and the faintest hint of hope mingling in her expression. What do you mean? You need to cut costs but keep the quality of work high. You need flexibility without paying benefits. Daniel took a deep breath. What if I became one of those freelancers you mentioned? I could work remotely, set my own hours around Lily's schedule, and you'd only pay me for the work I actually do. The board wants to use overseas freelancers. The rates are significantly lower. But the quality and client familiarity aren't there, Daniel countered. And the time zone differences create their own complications. What if you presented this as a pilot program? Keep me on as an independent contractor for 3 months. If it doesn't work out financially or practically, no harm done, I'm already fired. But if it does? Elena was silent, considering. It would be a hard sell to the board. You're very smart and good at your job, Daniel quoted his daughter with the ghost of a smile. If anyone could convince them, it would be you. Something like respect flickered in Elena's eyes. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I can promise. That's all I'm asking. As Elena prepared to leave, gathering her still damp coat, she paused at the door. Why would you even want to continue working with me after this? Daniel considered the question seriously. Because despite everything, I believe you're trying to do the right thing in an impossible situation. And because I need to show Lily that sometimes, the hardest conversations can lead to the best solutions. Elena nodded slowly. Your daughter is lucky to have you as her father. I'm the lucky one, Daniel replied simply. After Elena left, Daniel sat at his kitchen table for a long time, the unopened severance envelope before him. The future remained uncertain, but somehow, the midnight confrontation had left him feeling more hopeful than he had in months. Whatever came next, he would face it with the same determination that had carried him through the darkest days after Sarah's death. For Lily, he would always find a way. 3 months later, Daniel sat at the same kitchen table, but everything else had changed. His laptop displayed the final designs for the Carson campaign, work he'd completed between Lily's soccer practice and her bedtime, on his own schedule, in his own home. The freelance arrangement with Horizon had evolved into something neither he nor Elena could have predicted that rainy night. Not only had the board approved the pilot program, but they'd expanded it after seeing the results. Daniel now led a small team of parent designers who worked remotely, collaborating virtually while maintaining the flexibility their families needed. The company saved on overhead costs while retaining experienced talent, and clients received the same quality work without ever knowing it had been created at kitchen tables after bedtime stories. His phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Carson approved the designs. They're increasing their budget for next quarter. Board meeting went well. They want to expand the remote team. Dinner to discuss? Bringing the contracts. Daniel smiled as he typed his reply, sounds good. Lily's making spaghetti and insists you're invited. She says you need to try her secret sauce. The response came quickly, wouldn't miss it. Tell her I've been practicing my smile. Daniel set down his phone, listening to Lily singing to herself as she arranged her stuffed animals for a tea party in the living room. The path forward wasn't perfect, nothing ever was, but it was better than he could have imagined that midnight when a knock on the door seemed to signal the end of everything. Sometimes, he reflected, what looks like getting fired is actually getting freed. And sometimes, the people who seem to be standing in your way are actually struggling to find a path forward themselves. Daddy. Lily called from the living room. Can Ms. Elena come for dinner again tonight? I want to show her my science project. Actually, Daniel called back with a smile, she is coming tonight. Lily's cheer of delight was all the confirmation he needed that sometimes, the hardest moments can lead to the most unexpected blessings, if you're brave enough to open the door when opportunity knocks, even at midnight. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content that explores the complex, beautiful journey of human connection. Remember that sometimes our greatest challenges lead to our most meaningful transformations. Share in the comments a time when something that seemed like an ending became a new beginning in your life.